I was very privileged growing up. A lot of kids don't have it today. I grew up with my grandparents as my neighbors. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, 10 miles from town. All my life, I was here. We had over an acre and a half garden, and my grandparents on the other end. And with that privilege, I got to tell Mom, I'm going to Grandpa and Grandma's. And away I'd go down to their house, get there, and come up to the porch. And usually on that front porch, Grandpa was sitting out there. And I'd say, Grandpa, you want to play some checkers? And he said, sure. So I'd go in the house and get the checkerboard, get the checkers, and come back out, and we'd set it down there and start playing checkers. He had his fly swatting flies. I don't know why, out on the front porch, waving at everybody as they come by, the few cars that come by, sweat rolling down our back. We played on the front porch because it's actually cooler on the porch than it was in the house, because Grandma was in the house cooking either lunch or supper. They had an air conditioner, but Grandpa didn't use it because that used electricity, And so Grandma, she'd take a break from cooking, and she'd come out to open the screen door, come out on the porch and step over to the side of the porch, go, she dipped Sweet Garrett snuff. I never remember her not having a dip other than when she's sleeping or eating. Then she would turn and she would say, who's winning? Like she didn't know. Grandpa was a checker champion. And so with that, he didn't let us win ever because he wanted us to learn. So one day I asked him, I said, Grandpa, when I play Grandma, she lets me win. But you don't ever let me win. Why? He said, son, if you play people that you can beat all the time, you never get better. You need to play people and watch how they play. Then you learn. I only remember ever beating him twice in my whole life. Because he didn't let you win. You had to win. On another occasion, he told me something to do, and it wasn't something that I needed to do right then, but I didn't write it down. And so he looked at me. He pulled out his pencil. He said, son, a short pencil lead is better than a long memory. He always had a pencil and a little notebook in his pocket. Nowadays we have cell phones. But that wasn't the biggest lesson I learned from him. The story that nobody talked about in our family. Everybody knew it, but no one talked about it. In 1921, when my grandfather was 9 years old, he and his older brother were riding on the buckboard. If you've seen the old westerns, you've seen what a buckboard is. It's the bench that they sit on, and the wagon in the back. So he and his brother were on the buckboard. His brother was driving the team. His dad was in the back of the wagon with the pigs they had just bought earlier in the day from a neighbor. They were on their way home. When they were about a half a mile from their house, Grandpa's uncle, his dad's younger brother, rode up out of the woods and stopped them. They had been in an argument, his dad and his old uncle had been in an argument earlier in the day in town. Wasn't new because it had been going on for over 10 years. But with that, his brother, after the argument, went home, put his stuff away, and got on his horse and came back and stopped him. Told his brother, Grandpa's dad, to take back what he had said earlier. And within a few moments, Grandpa's dad was dead. He shot him and his older brother. Grandpa got off the wagon to try to get his brother back into the wagon because he had fallen out. Couldn't do it because he was too small. He looked at his uncle and asked him to help him get him back in the wagon so he could go on home. His uncle said, I'm not going to touch him. So he gets the mules, unhooked from the wagon, goes home, gets his mom, they come back and take care of the bodies. Fast forward a few years, my grandpa and grandma eloped on the buckboard of a wagon. They raised 3 children, 97 foster children. My dad remembers his uncle at Grandpa's house sitting on the front porch and visiting. The question I'd like to ask my grandfather playing checkers, how did you do it? With the not bitterness and continuing to be friends. I believe he would say, son, you can be a victim of your circumstances, or you can be a victor over your circumstances. The choice is yours.